You've really only got two other options when it comes to buying property. You either put it into a trust structure or you put it into a company. I personally buy long-term buy and hold properties into trust, and then I buy my property development projects in companies. The only advantage, in my opinion, of buying a property in your own name is if you live in that property for a period of time, then when you go to sell that property, that money is tax-free. I think that's the only advantage. There's heaps of other disadvantages, and the biggest one is that property is actually a liability if you're living in there because you're paying the mortgage with after-tax dollars. When you buy a property in a trust or a company, you do have a massive advantage with your serviceability with the lender. You do need a finance broker who does know what they're doing with this, and you also need an accountant on board as well that knows how this works. But the biggest advantage with buying property that isn't in your own name is when you buy each property in a separate entity, it means that when you're buying a new property, the bank isn't looking at all your other liabilities. Those other properties that you're purchasing, they have to cover their own expenses, which means that the rent from those other properties needs to cover at least the mortgage and the other outgoings, the other expenses as well. That's how people build up massive portfolios of properties, beyond 2 or 3 properties like most of the population, if you get that far. That's how people are building up huge property portfolios, is they're buying properties in separate entities. It's really the only way to do it. And those entities, like I mentioned, you've either got a trust, so you buy a property in a trust, or you buy it in a company. And that way, each time you buy a property, your serviceability isn't affected by the rest of your portfolio when it comes to buying residential properties.